MLB.com just named their top 5 most improved farm systems of 2022. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. And as we said in the open, MLB.com just put out a piece with the top 5 most improved minor league farm systems in 2022. Sam Dykstra, one of the writers over there, dropped the piece. I'm going to link it in the show notes, but let's go through these 5. The number 1 team, and this is from the spring when they were originally ranked to the end of the season after the AFL and trades and the offseason and all of that, how much they moved in the 1 through 30 rankings. Number 1 was the Colorado Rockies. Started off at number 24 to open last season. One top 100 prospect, Zach Veen, and that was it. And now coming in at number 9. And among other things in there, he mentions it's mostly been development. They did draft Gabriel Hughes at number 10 overall in the draft, the right hitter out of Gonzaga. But for the most part, this has just been development. We had a show last week. We talked with the Rockies about Ezekiel Tovar. We talked about Zach Veen as well. But there's a couple other guys in the top 100 now that were not to begin the season last year, and Adel Amador and Drew Romo. So Amador here, shortstop, second baseman, 2019 IFA. The thing to know here is it's going to stick somewhere up the middle. He's a good defender, but the arm isn't quite where it needs to be. The speed's a little bit low. So he can stick in the infield. He can stick in the middle infield, but he's going to have to move in from short to second versus moving out to third because of the arm. Spent the entire year in low A Fresno, so 115 games, 292, 415, 445, 15 home runs, 39 extra base hits, 87 walks to 67 strikeouts. So, very, very good numbers. And the thing here, the power is coming in. Slugging to 445 isn't necessarily where you want it to end up. He is 5'11", 175 at age 19 in low A, but absolutely the quick hands, the short swing means he can get to a lot of balls. You see the batting average be so high because he can easily and quickly cover the entire plate. The on-base percentage, very, very high because of how seldomly he strikes out and how often he walks. Not many prospects, especially at age 19, do we talk about walking more than they strike out. But 87 walks to 67 strikeouts in Fresno. So absolutely a reason he came into the top 100. Completely agree with that. The other guy, catcher Drew Romo, 2020 first rounder supplemental out of high school. And he spent the whole year at High A Spokane. 254, 321, 372, 5 home runs, 29 extra base hits in 101 games with 81 strikeouts to 35 walks. Couple questions here. I think part of the reason Romo is rated in the top 100 is the fact that his defense is stellar. He is a no doubt elite, very good receiver. Pop times are very low. The arm is somewhere between above average and plus. I've seen different grades on it, but very, very accurate with it, very quick release on it, and then just understands the game really well. And so it's a very high floor as far as, he could be a Gold Glove caliber defender. Very high floor. That's going to play at the major league level, provided that you can at least hit your weight. And he's 205. Offensively, there's still a little bit of work to do. He's a switch hitter. Feels like he's much better as a lefty than the righty. When you look at the splits, he was like 351 as a lefty, 218 as a righty. You might just need to be a left-hander, Drew. That might just be the way you work. Very good with strike zone discipline. I think he's going to end up as an above average hitter. The question I have is the power ceiling. He's got the bat speed, he's got the raw strength, but it doesn't necessarily seem to come into games. He hit 6 home runs in 79 games at age 19 in low A Fresno, and then he hit 5 home runs in 101 games at age 20 in high A Spokane. And it just seems like even if you don't necessarily get that power, like that power ceiling of a 20 home runs or whatever, you're still looking at a catcher who's going to give you a high batting average, and like he's going to hit over his weight, and then by the way, he's going to give you Gold Glove defense. So you have to feel good about it. I completely agree. I think number 1 is a great spot for them. Number 2 on the list is the Reds. And a couple different things here. Part of it was development of players. For the most part, development is one of the main reasons these teams have improved their farm system rankings so much. But the other one is trades. They note in the piece that Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, both those pitchers are no longer prospect eligible. They graduated during the year. And yet, despite that, the system still comes up from number 15 to number 4. And it's the combination of the trades and the development. So when you look at the trades and the guys you acquire, they traded Luis Castillo to the Mariners. And in that deal, they got their number 2 and number 3 prospects, shortstop Noelvi Marte, shortstop Edwin Arroyo. They traded Tyler Mahle to the Twins. They got number 5 prospect, Christian Encarnacion Strand, listed as the third baseman. I think he's going to be the first baseman of the future. They also got Spencer Steer, number 7 prospect in the system, debuted, got a cup of coffee last year. He's your utility guy that can play anywhere in the infield. And then in the Brandon Drury trade with the Padres, they got shortstop Victor Acosta, who is number 15 in the system right now. I see him as somebody who would eventually be at second base if Jonathan India either moves to the outfield or doesn't re-sign when he hits free agency. But the star of this system, and the guy that I always look for any excuse to talk about, is shortstop Elly De La Cruz. Huge Elly De La Cruz fan here. I can't talk about him enough. I think that he's got one of the highest ceilings in all of baseball. International free agent and 2018, about 6'5" or so. But when you look at his scouting report, he's got like 3 different 70 grades, right? The speed, exceptional speed. The arm, exceptional arm, and above average defense. And so he wants to stick at shortstop. He said he wanted to stick at shortstop if at all possible. And he's above average there. In winter ball, he played both third base and second base. He said he liked third base better than second. That rail gun of an arm would agree at third base. And then as an amateur, he played some center field. And a lot of projections, Baseball America is one of them, a lot of projections when you look at the future roster and how many shortstops are here right now in this system, they have Elly De La Cruz as the center fielder. Whether he plays third, whether he's the center fielder, I think he's an absolute asset, one of the fastest players, biggest arm, probably the most power. And the question with Elly De La Cruz is all going to come down to your power tool's only as good as your hit tool. And on the one hand, struck out 31% of the time. On the other hand, in 120 games between high A and double A, he had a batting average of 304 in 120 games. So yes, he strikes out a lot, but he also makes contact a lot. 304, 359, 586 slugging, 28 home runs, 68 extra base hits. Again, in 120 games, so more than once every other game, he's getting an extra base hit. 40 walks to 158 strikeouts. There's the rub. There's the variance on the projections for Elly De La Cruz right there. 47 to 53 on stolen bases. The speed is real. But again, it just comes down to consistency. How much can he make effective contact? I do wonder if the switch hitting is something that will need to end. The right-handed swing is very much more a contact swing. The left-hand swing is very much smoother, more powerful, looks to me to be the better swing. But either way, it's exceptional player, exceptional talent, gonna do big things going forward. And in just a minute, I want to get to teams 3 and 4. Interesting teams, including the division that they're in. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Pro football, we're in coming up on week 17 and 18. If you're in the fantasy football playoffs, like I am, you're probably in your championship, like I am, taking on Locked On Auburn host Zach Blackerby for the championship in our league. College bowl season's underway. On Tuesday, while this pod is being recorded, there's 4 bowl games today. This week is like the golden week between Christmas and New Year's, where there's just bowl games on all day, every day. Basketball, the NBA is going on hot and heavy. They just had their whole day of Christmas full of games. They're pushing right now. They've got everything at betonline.net. So it's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so when we're looking at this list from MLB.com of the top 5 most improved farm systems, team number 3 is the Cleveland Guardians. Started off at number 12 before the season, ended up after the season at number 3. And I'm glad that they put this in the piece, because this is something we talk about a lot, especially with the guys from Locked On Guardians. They're big into this. Cleveland absolutely has a type when it comes to the prospects that they scout and they draft. And so most of this credit of this jump is development of the pitchers. Something that Cleveland does is they find a college pitcher that has good control. They draft him. They get they get the stuff to spin a little better, get the velo to be a little bit better, and he becomes a better pitcher. They do this over and over and over again. You can look in the system and you can look at Gavin Williams, Tanner Bibby for righties, Logan Allen for the lefty. Those are all guys that did that. There are certain college programs with which they avoid, and certain college programs they go out and they get. University of Florida, they love to draft guys from the University of Florida because a lot of this work hasn't been done. They don't love the Wake Forest pitchers because the Wake Forest pitchers, a lot of this work has already been done, and there's not a whole lot they can get out of it. At the same time, they do have a couple prospects with just amazing tools. Daniel Espino, they touch on him in the piece, a guy that doesn't have the control like a Bibby or a Williams or an Allen, but the stuff is absolutely electric. The fastball, the slider are both better than plus pitches. He was hurt a little bit last year. And then the article touches on Bo Naylor as far as he improved a bit. And I think the signing of Mike Zunino is a great thing for Bo Naylor because it kind of gives him a runway to adjust to the big league. But there's also a type for the position players that Cleveland likes to get as well, and they don't really touch on that in the piece. They like to go find high contact players, high contact hitters with good defense. Brian Rocchio, the shortstop, Angel Martinez, the shortstop, Will Brennan, the outfielder. Like, they like to go out and get guys like that and then supplement that with a bet on power. Outfielder George Valera, outfielder Chase DeLauder, and like guys that have better power ceilings, but more questionable contact tools to be able to fully realize the power ceilings. Tampa Bay Rays, I feel like, are similar as far as their approach to infielders or position players in general. They like the high defense, good contact guys, or the pure power prospect that they have to, in essence, teach a contact tool to. Number 4 on this list is the Chicago Cubs. Started off number 18, ended up number 10. And this is a combination of development and some of the trades that they have made, whether it was pitching that they added or the development of the high-level outfielders. So they've got 3 in the top 100, and they're all outfielders. Pete Crow Armstrong, he's expected to come up late in 2023. He was somebody they acquired via trade in 2021. Brennan Davis played at AAA last year, could come up at any time in 2023, will probably challenge for a job in spring training, so may or may not come up to start the season. But Brennan Davis, 2023 ETA, and then Kevin Alcantara, a little bit farther away. I see him as either 2025 or late in 2024, but three big name outfielders. They also mentioned in the piece about Matt Mervis, who I expect to be the opening day first baseman. He was an undrafted free agent in 2020. Again, we're not too worried about that. He was a two-way player at Duke and then just crushed 36 home runs last year and is solidly a first baseman because of his range, despite the fact that his arm is a cannon because two-way player. It's going to be great when you got to go get a lead runner at second or third on a potential double play. That's fine. They also mentioned the drafting of Cade Horton at number 7. And as far as the fastball slider combo that he has, but just looking at the pitching that they added either in late 2021 or in 2022 via trades. Number 10 in the system, Caleb Killian. He was the return for Chris Bryant's move to the Giants at the trade deadline in 2021. Horton, number 5 prospect in the system in the draft. Number 8 pitcher or prospect in the system, right-hand pitcher Hayden Weneski. He was part of the Scotty Frost trade to the Yankees. They got him back as a higher level starting pitching prospect. Ben Brown, number 6 prospect in the system. He was the return for David Robertson to the Phillies at the deadline last year. And so you have a bunch of these pitchers that are higher level. Horton, not as much, but these other pitchers who are higher level in the system combined with some of the moves they've made in this offseason, whether it was going out and getting Dansby Swanson. I like what the Mets are, I like what the Cubs are doing, and I like how their team lines up to be competitive a year early. You're catching combo of Tucker Barnhart and Yan Gomes will be good enough. Going out, putting Cody Bellinger in center, if he can recapture anything like his previous form, that's a win. You've got Ian Happ last year. If his deal could get moved at the deadline, especially if you see Brennan Davis come up and look good. Seiya Suzuki is still in right field, but by signing Swanson, Nico Horner moves to second, which means you have a very, very good middle of the infield defense. Cody Bellinger's a plus defender in center as well. You can do Patrick Wisdom as the DH or at first base. I would rather Matt Mervis play first base, but you can do either one. I do think Christopher Morel at third is a bit of a waste of his defensive utility. So I do wish you had someone to play third base, or you'd make a signing for someone to play third base, because Christopher Morel's real value is being a utility guy and being able to give you above average to plus defense in both the outfield and at second base. But you can pencil him in as the third baseman for now. That's perfectly fine. Love both of these teams. Love what they have done. In just a minute, I want to get to the 5th team on the list. Interesting, probably not the team you're thinking about, and a little bit questionable about how they got this talent. But first, today's episode is brought to you by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks, and a few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride, but now you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's not a big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you'll lose your license, you'll lose your job, hold your car, kill somebody. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. If you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life, someone else's, forever. Drive sober or get pulled. If you think long and hard about who this 5th team is or what team this is, you think about the transactions and the trades that were made in 2022, it should be obvious that this 5th team is the Washington Nationals. They moved from 23 before the season to 15th after the season, and trading a player of the caliber of Juan Soto, you better get a bunch of prospects back. And Obviously, it was a big return. 3 prospects, 2 MLB players. Mi Right-hand pitcher Mackenzie Gore, shortstop CJ Abrams. Neither one of them are prospects anymore. They have exceeded, the service time to become MLB players. But of the prospects that you got, outfielder James Wood, number 1 prospect in the system. Outfielder Robert Hassel, number 2 prospect in the system. The right-hand pitcher Jarlin Susana, number 7 prospect in the system. And looking at the rest of the top 10, Elijah Green at 3 is a guy who you went out and drafted in the first round this year, very early in the draft, and it's seen as possibly not having as high of a ceiling as Drew Jones, but probably having a higher floor and being a bit of a safer pick. So I absolutely get that. And then looking at some of the other guys, couple interesting players here. Uh, Number 4 pitcher in the system or prospect in the system is right-hand pitcher Cade Cavalli. He should be on the roster for opening day. I don't think he's going to be the opening day starter, but I do think he'll be on the roster for opening day. And he's someone that wasn't a ton of things they still needed him to work on. The big thing was work on the changeup, get more comfortable with the changeup. He did use that last year, did do more. Got a little bit of time last year, got nicked up, missed the rest of the season. He's supposed to be fine for 2023. Again, I expect him to make the team out of spring training and be one of the 5 members of that rotation all season to kind of work on it. Number 5 prospect in the system, shortstop Brady House. He was injured last year, had a back injury, so a lot of the numbers kind of took a step back. I still expect him to probably repeat low A Fredericksburg this year, and I do still see him as a third baseman ultimately. He is a big boy, physically, like 6'4", 220. And the speed is perfectly average, but I just think given he has a plus arm, the range is average, you're probably going to see him move and become an above average third baseman versus being an average shortstop. So I do see that as the eventual move. 2 guys I do want to mention, we don't talk about a lot. Outfielder Christian Vaquero, number 6 prospect in the system, was the star of the 2021 international free agency class. And we don't normally do this, but 55 games in the Dominican last year. 256, 379, 341. 1 home run, 9 extra base hits, 33 walks to 38 strikeouts, and 17 to 24 on stolen bases. He's going to come stateside this year. You should see him in the complex leagues this summer. I think he's going to be a very good player. He's a natural lefty. He learned switch hitting right before he signed with the Nationals. That right-handed swing is still a work in progress. As I understand, they plan to let him continue to try to switch hit for a while. But one of the big issues that he has is he needs to elevate the ball. He hits the ball on the ground too much. When he was in Cuba, he was way too aggressive. But in the Dominican last year, strikeout rate was just under 18%. Walk rate was almost as high, like 15%. So very good. I do think the power can be above average, but again, he needs to elevate the ball more. He hit the ball on the ground too much. And a lot of that came from the right-hand side. Again, still a work in progress there as far as the swing and understanding that. I do eventually, I think, see him as a corner. He has as a center fielder. He has probably 70 speed. He's got a plus arm. He can stick in center field. He is obviously a ways away. I mean, he'll be 18 in the complex league last year. I don't think he's going to have that incredibly fast Juan Soto track where he's in the bigs at 19. I do think it's going to take him a little bit of time, and you're looking at age 20 or so to be in the big. So if you're looking ahead at what this lineup might look like in a couple years, you're probably not going to see him in the 2024 Washington Nationals, or maybe even the 2025 Washington Nationals. But he's going to be a part of the team going forward because he is a very good player. Outfielder TJ White is also in this top 10. And 2021 fifth rounder out of high school. 92 games in low A Fredericksburg last year. 258, 353, 432. 11 home runs, 33 extra base hits, 44 walks to 4 strikeouts in 92 games, 8 and 9 on stolen bases. Switch hitter, I do want to make sure that people don't see all of these outfielders and think, well, there's nowhere for them all to play. Obviously, you've got Wood and Hassel, you've got Green, you've got Vaquero. Thing you have to remember, one, is the most likely outcome for any individual prospect is they don't make it. The closer to get to the bigs, the more info we have on them and the better we can bake the risk into the profile. But the most likely outcome is a guy doesn't make it. So don't worry that you have 5 or 6 outfielders listed in your top 10. Somebody's not going to make it. Plus, TJ White is going to be a first baseman. Defense is kind of rough. His speed's below average. He's been stuck in like left field only as far as rookie ball in low A, and they've started to rep him a bit at first base. And so he's going to be moving to first base, where 6'2", 210, he's a righty, which is not, lefty righty at first base doesn't matter like it matters everywhere else across the diamond. So he's going to be at first base. You still have the option of an outfield with Wood and Hassel and then Green or Vaquero, multiple options out there, but it's going to take a little while for this team to get there, and they need this farm system to produce. They've beefed up the analytics staff. They're installing Hawkeye in every minor league ballpark of theirs. So low A, high A, double A, triple A, all of those parks are getting Hawkeye installed by the Nationals. So they have all the advanced data on these players to try to help them develop. Fantastic week this week. Remember, if you have questions for the show, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm, or you can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com. Until tomorrow's show, this has been Locked On MLB Prospect.